I took on a game design project. I went through all the popular reworks of the Ranger class, then gathered a whole group of prominent homebrewers on the most active forum, and together, collectively, we would build a Ranger that the community could be proud of. Finally, r/Unearthed Arcana could put fixing the Ranger to rest. That was 5 years ago. The so-called Consensus Ranger was my first major foray into the wider D&D community. It was pretty well received. A whole lot of folks were really engaged with the process, and it ended up being the first Ranger fix to be inducted into that subreddit's Homebrew Hall of Fame. It was that experience that made me think I could be more than a fan. I could be a creator. But as far as the goal of forming a consensus of what the fixed Ranger should look like, utter failure. How naive I was. Wizards themselves seems to be at a loss for what to do to make the fan base happy. And it's not for a lack of trying. They've put out numerous reworks of the Ranger. There's the Unearthed Arcana Ranger, the Ranger Revised, Happy Fun Hour Proto Ranger, the Baldur's Gate leaks, and then the options and Tasha's. And still, if you keep your ear to the ground on the internet, people aren't happy with the Ranger. So in this video, I'm going to briefly go through the history of the Ranger, then we're going to talk about the common problems that people say with the Ranger, and then I'm going to talk a bit about what I've learned in the 5 years since the Consensus Ranger, all the way up to Galder's Gazetteer, which has a new variant Ranger in it. Yes, you're going to get a preview of what's in the book, but go ahead and buy it, it's for charity. Now, generally, I don't give much weight to the idea that time spent equals wisdom. But like I said, I went through all the popular fixes back in 2016, and I haven't stopped doing that. Every time a major one pops up, I read through it. Anto over at Icarus Meta Needs just released one. But I'm giving you that background information as a way of saying that I'm deep in the culture and lore of fixing the Ranger, and I've really watched how it's evolved over time. But before we dive into the design of the classes, I'm also going to share with you why I think it kind of doesn't matter, that no matter how much effort went into this Ranger, and a lot did, people are still not going to be happy and wanting to fix the Ranger. I'm going to give you what I think is the real reason behind that. In its original incarnation, the Ranger was essentially the fighter, but better. You got the fighter's stats, except for you could also track. You got an extra hit dice at first level because you were fighting monstrous creatures, and eventually you got to learn some druid spells. You were essentially this one unnamed character from this unnamed book trilogy. And then this dude named Bob started writing this book series that got really popular, and the main character claimed to be a Ranger, and he fought with 2 swords. So in the next iteration of the game, all Rangers could fight with 2 swords because that's what Rangers did. And the being a better fighter was balanced by the fact that XP tracked differently. It took longer to level up as a Ranger than it did as a fighter. And the 2-weapon fighting, some druid spells, favored enemy tracking Ranger lasted for about 20 years. People sort of forget how long AD&D was actually played. But when 3rd edition came out with the feats and the skill system, a lot of things that are really special and unique about the Ranger got exported to other parts of the game. If you climbed a feat tree, you could also do 2-weapon fighting, and anybody with enough skill ranks could also track. I'm gonna skip over 4th edition because I don't feel like I know enough to meaningfully comment, but when we get to 5th edition, now here's where we have a lot to say. Complaints about the Ranger in 5th edition usually fall into a few broad groups. Number one is a lot of folks think that the class as a whole doesn't have a strong story identity. Not a lot of folks are convinced that the idea of this woodsman hunter as an archetype is strong enough. Folks also complain that they don't think the Ranger has a mechanical identity. It doesn't have that one thing it does that makes it special. The barbarian can rage, the sorcerer has meta magic, the fighter can action surge. What does the Ranger do? Along those same lines, the folks think the mechanic the Ranger should be really good at, exploring the wilderness, is not really great at doing in the game. A lot of that gets contributed to this weird chicken and egg problem. No one uses overland travel because there's not a lot of class support for it. There's not a lot of class support for overland travel because no one uses it. I contend that those long stretches of overland travel, getting lost and tracking rations, are not in the game not because the rules don't support them, but because people don't like playing it out. Most people don't like doing accounting in their precious free time, and folks don't want to get lost, they want to get to the dungeon. It's just not fun to explore or travel. And the last broad complaint is folks do not like the fact that the Ranger is a spellcaster. Now, I'm going to address that last one right away, because I think it's kind of a non sequitur. I think that you just have to accept that Rangers in Dungeons & Dragons trademark are spellcasters. We're not playing generic fantasy role-playing game, we're playing a game with a history and tradition, and Rangers have always been able to do that in the game. Plus, if you want to play the woodsy hunter outdoorsman without casting spells, the game already supports options to do that. You have a fighter with an outlander background, you can have a rogue scout, there are lots of ways. Yeah, so that first complaint, I'm going to dismiss out of hand. Sorry. I also disagree with the folks who think the Ranger doesn't have a story identity. As we talked about earlier, the Ranger was one of the first classes introduced to the game. So before tabletop role-playing games were really fleshed out, people already had this idea of the fantasy archetype in their minds. I also think there are plenty of examples in media history and literature that really tell us what a Ranger is. Moreover, if you go into D&D Beyond, which is more representative of the community as a whole rather than this elite group of internet forum users, us, then you see that the Ranger is actually really popular. So that tells us that people already know what there is and they want to play that story. The Huntsman Protector who draws from the wisdom of nature, I think is strong enough for a class. So that leaves us to the Ranger's lack of a unique mechanical identity and the not a lot of support for overland travel exploration. I've actually talked a lot about those two topics before. There's video 1 and video 2. Go check them out. But in short, the Ranger's natural explorer, what's supposed to be their key feature, it either removes a lot of the challenges from overland travel. You never become lost, you always find food, etc. Or if you're out of your favorite terrain, you don't get any benefits. And whatever additional challenges the Dungeon Master might try to lay on top of overland travel, the Ranger does not have a special ability equipped to deal with them. Their favorite enemy ability is also a ribbon. Because if you've made favorite enemy a combat focused ability, the DM either has to put those specific monsters in the game for the Ranger to feel satisfied, or the Ranger is always going to be hitting below their weight if you balance their combat output on their favorite enemy and it's not present. So those are the problems. But before we get into the reworks and how those got addressed, I do want to talk about why I think people are never going to be satisfied with any Ranger rework. So the Beastmaster as written is weak, no getting around that. But other than that, people actually liked playing the class. They like playing the Player's Handbook Ranger a lot. They have fun doing it. They think it fulfills their fantasy. And there are lots and lots of options to play a Ranger. With all the things that Wizards release, people can pick and choose a la carte until they have exactly the build that they want. And yet the reworks keep coming. What I think is happening is people are taking advantage of the fact that the Ranger is bad as a meme. And it's giving them permission to do homebrew and get feedback on it that they wouldn't otherwise get. Can you imagine if somebody tried to say, you know what, I don't like the Bard, let's remake that class from the ground up? That would get trashed non-stop online. No one would ever get any feedback on their remake of the fighter class. The fact that the Ranger is bad as this idea is a shield people can use to rip something core out of the game and try to replace it with something of their own. It's an excuse to do homebrew they wouldn't otherwise do. So this idea that the Ranger is bad is empowering and freeing to a lot of home designers. And that's great. Although I just wish they would take that permissiveness and ignore the Ranger and apply it to everything else. Imagine all the cool stuff we could have if everyone was so obsessed with reworking the other classes as they were with reworking the Ranger. Well, I did take that idea and run with it, and there are 8 variant classes in the book. Go check it out. So without further ado, let's jump into this Ranger, the Consensus Ranger. So again, something I really want to highlight here is this was back in 2016. So for the timeline's sake, this was right after the Chris Perkins Ranger. That was just 5 levels and you summon like the spirit beast that would help you out. But this was before the Ranger Revised, the one that was legal for in Adventures League for a little bit and had the greater favorite enemy and all that good trash. Just give you a little bit of what the timeline was looking like there. All right, and again, the major idea of this Ranger was we're going to figure out what the common themes were and a whole bunch of the big fixes that are out there. Because, you know, even 5 years ago, people were always reworking the Ranger. Since the game came out, people have been trying to find a better way of doing this class. And so here is just the flavor text, no big deal. But here's something that is interesting, right? I found a few class themes, something that I wanted the Ranger to feel like, and then gave each of those class themes a key mechanic. All right. So right here, the idea is that Rangers are skirmishers. And then to support that, they get a fighting style and this ability called Skirmisher Stealth. That lets Rangers focus on tactics and involves ambushes, mobility, and sniping. So Rangers are vigilant. They are always on guard and have a 6th sense for danger. So the key mechanic here is Primal Instincts. This is sort of a mashup of a lot of other features, but we'll dive into that when we get there. Rangers are the ultimate survivors. They have grit and can pull through in any situation. Their toughness and instincts keep them attack. So this is Ultimate Survivor, not necessarily in the survival skill, but survivor as in their toughness, their legendary toughness. And their key mechanic is natural healing and variant features. So this is a class that has a variant feature. I know that some like races have variants that you can like a variant human. This is a variant feature already inside this class way back in 2016. Right. Very innovative stuff for the time, I believe. And then finally, they are also Masters of the Wild. They can wander the barren wilderness. Their linked to nature gives them supernatural abilities, and their key mechanic here is Natural Explorer. My thoughts about Natural Explorer have changed a lot since this Ranger came out, and that's something that we're going to talk about in the second half of this stream. But again, the ability to learn new favorite terrains make the Ranger the best character to have in the wilds. All right, and so here we have our level table. We keep this Ranger as a half-caster because, again, this was the consensus. This was the average of the most common fixes at the time. And still, most of them had spellcasting. So we added acrobatics into their skill list. I think 2 or 3 popular reworks at the time, like another Ranger variant, or I I forget what it's called. It was by Irish Bandit though. He was one of the early leaders in Arthur Kana back in the day, and they always had acrobatics, mostly because of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies, I imagine. The equipment's the same. Favorite enemy stays a ribbon in this one, right? All it does is give you advantage to track, and you get a language, right? But there is one little tweak right here. At 14th level, you get the Foe Slayer ability, right? Normally you do that at 20th level, but here we brought it down to 14th and we tacked it onto your favorite enemy. Natural Explorer is exactly the same as it is. It's pretty much a bunch of ribbon features. See, we dropped Vanish into 6th level right here. Right? So at 6th level, you start to be able to get that Vanish feature that's normally available at like 10th level. That makes sense, right? By the time you're like a 6th or a 10th or 14th level character, you're no longer just walking through the woods, right? Leaving the trail is not a problem that you really face. So we wanted to make this important, so we gave it to you at 6th level. And then at 10th level, here's something new to this natural terrain feature, is that after 7 days, you can count whatever terrain you're in as your favorite terrain. So again, you get this pretty early because we want to be viable. After 10th level, walking through the woods, again, is not a problem characters face. And so this sort of brushes that away, right? It gives a story reason why. If you have a ranger in your party after 10th level, you really no longer have to worry about overland travel whatsoever. And this is why you learn that new favorite terrain. So here is Natural Healing. This is the feature that was added in to make the ranger feel tougher. In the Chris Perkins Unearthed Arcana Ranger, the first one, that ranger had 2d6 hit die. So they wanted to make that ranger tougher, and they wanted to give that ranger more control over how they healed. So this ranger has Natural Healing. At 1st level, whenever you use a hit die to recover hit points and roll a 1 or 2, you can re-roll the die. So here is the variant feature. Is this, instead of this Natural Healing, you can have 2d4 hit die. You get more hit points, and you have a lot more control over your healing. Very interesting. And because the way that the Beastmaster's Beast Companion works is they spend your hit die, this lets you share more easily. This lets you share a little bit more easily. All right, fighting styles. So what we did here is we removed one fighting style. I think we took out Grape Weapon Fighting, but instead gave you this Mariner fighting style. The name is kind of silly, I guess, but anyway, is the fighting style that gives you a swimming speed and a climbing speed. So this is the fighting style that lets you be the more mobile ranger. It's easier for you to skirmish because you can get places that other people can't. So this is something that we added in to sort of flesh out that skirmisher feel, which is one of this class features goals. Spell casting, same old stuff. All right, and unlike the one in Galder's Gazetteer, which is just the core class, for the Consensus Ranger, we went ahead and redid the archetypes, and we'll get to those in a little bit. All right, so Primal Instincts is one of the new feelings. So it is a combination of a couple of different abilities that sort of get stretched out. So in the Player's Handbook Ranger at 18th level, you get that ability that lets you know where invisible creatures are, or not being able to see somebody doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls. And at 3rd level, you get the thing where you can expend a spell slot and you sense where creatures are. So this one leaves in that little bug where it's somehow kind of worse within your favorite terrain. But I think the intent is clear here, right? You have a wider radar. It's not making it harder to track down. It's just letting you ping and know it's there. And so we smashed those two features together and then stretched it out. So this is a combination of the 3rd level feature from the Player's Handbook Ranger and the 18th level feature. But then we also give you one at 10th level. We give you half that ability at a lower level. Oh, and here's the timer on it, right? You can use this a number of times per day equal to 1 plus your wisdom modifier. So it's no longer burning a spell slot, it's just a number of uses that you can do it. ASIs are the same, extra attack is the same. Skirmisher Stealth, this is one of the new abilities that's trying to help it flesh out that skirmisher feel. So this is a cool feature right here at 6th level, right? Take the hide action and the bonus action. So again, it's something that the Player's Handbook Ranger gets at like 14th level, like way late. Here you give it to you at 6th so you can skirmish more easily. And then if you are hidden when you roll initiative, making an attack during the first round of combat does not reveal your location if you otherwise fulfill the conditions needed to hide. So this encourages the ranger to set ambushes. This encourages the ranger to play
that stealthy character. They can do kind of like the rogue does with their cunning action. Land stride is the same. And here we have ranger archetypes. So these are, the hunter is very nearly the same as in the book. It just has some very small changes that sort of make some of the other options more viable. So hunter's prey, I think, is exactly the same. Defensive tactics. So here is where we made a little slight changes here, right? This steel will, you are immune to being frightened now. Because before, just having advantage on those throws was obviously the weaker option. And then here, with multi-attack, we made this whirlwind attack just a bit better. You can use your action to move up to half your speed and make a melee attack against any number of creatures that came within 5 feet of you during this movement. Because the way it is originally written, that you have to stand still and just make an attack around everybody, and that very rarely is going to be any better than volley, especially because volley is done at range. And so the Beastmaster is the one that everyone has a whole lot of problems with. And I think the goal here was to make as small changes as possible to the player's handbook ranger while using some of the features that were already partially developed from other people. So what we do here is let the beast grow in size. This was a very popular option back in the day. We're trying to fix the ranger. We let you instead increase this challenge rating and get bigger. And it's a way to potentially scale the beast because the hit points fall behind. And to add to that, we also give it a small boost in hit points, 1 more per level. It gains proficiency in saving throws. That's another big problem that people were really harping on with the beast in this version, is that they realized pretty early on that most beasts do not have proficiency in saves, and they're going to fall behind and fail, especially at higher levels. And how you get a new beast. Okay, so exceptional training, you get down right there. This is normally at 6th level, and the problem with the Beastmaster Ranger, or a big problem with the Beastmaster Ranger, is that it acts like this little remote control toy that unless you tell it to do something on its turn, it just sort of sits there. And so here you use your bonus action to do all the things except for attack. And then how you integrate the attack action is also something that's super important with the Beastmaster Ranger, because if you just let it attack for your bonus action, eventually as you scale up, it's going to be doing way too much damage. And because a lot of their attacks also have riders on them, just letting your beast attack willy-nilly is really, really unbalancing. There is some native scaling in the player's handbook ranger, but mostly scales off your proficiency bonus, and it's hit points and saves the thing that's really holding it back. Anything that just sits there and does nothing unless you tell it to do it. This is way, way before the 10th printing erratas and way before the Tasha's erratas. So again, as a bonus action, you can have your beast do some things. At 7th level, you share your spells with it. And then at 11th level, when you command the beast to take the attack action, it can attack twice or take the multi-attack action if it has it. So, here's the other thing. I should have said this earlier. You can use your action to command the beast to take the attack action. Once you have extra attack feature, when you take the attack action, the beast makes a single attack using one of your attacks. The player's handbook, as it's written, is the other way around. And that's a big problem because a lot of the Ranger's features key off you taking the attack action. Your Hunter's Mark, your 2-weapon fighting, they all require the Ranger to take the attack action instead of using extra attack, giving your beast one and taking one yourself. The player's handbook has that kind of backwards, and it's really frustrating. So 11th level, we add the second attack back to the beast. And then at a 15th level, this is one we got... Shoot, I forget exactly where this came from. I forget, this is another popular one though, that you give your beast uncanny dodge essentially. That's a huge problem. The beast has so few hit points at higher level, it just falls apart. So giving it a way to stay alive is the big issue. The issue with the Ranger Companion was never its damage output. It hits low, but you add your proficiency bonus to it. It was never, that was never the issue. The issue was always the attack action and its survivability. Finding a new beast, this just tells you, hey, you can level your beast up, right? You can have your lion grow into a large lion or whatever, your panther grow into a large panther. All right, so that is the Consensus Ranger. And then right here, yeah, look at all these fantastic people that helped us out. Here's the list of the changes from the Player's Handbook. We added acrobatics. You had the 2d4 hit die variant. We moved the foe slayer ability to favorite enemy, and then you drop that from 20th level to 14th level. You altered Natural Explorer, so you get the vanish feature of not being able to track at 6th level instead of too late in the game, so you're never using it. And we added the feature at 10th level, you can start learning terrains. So after 7 days, you're now a master of that terrain. So you never have that feature where you're really, really good if you're in your favorite terrain, but as soon as you leave it, you're worthless at exploring. You learn terrains. We added the natural healing to make the ranger feel a little bit tougher, because I was one of the class themes here. Defensive fighting style, that's the one we took out. And add the mariner one instead. The primal instincts is, again, it's the 18th level feature mixed with the normal one, smushed together and take out the spell slot requirement. So just give you a timer based on your wisdom. Added a skirmisher stealth, and then remove the vanish feature. You got integrated into other things. Remove feral senses. It got integrated into other things. We altered the steel will, alter roll and attack. The ranger's companion, exceptional training, shared spells used to be 11th level, now it's at 7th, and the beastly coordination is at 15th. This is the one that's keeping your ranger alive. Boom. So there we go. Again, like I said, this was a Spiketail Drake. He was a major homebrewer back in the day. Liuku, he at the time had the most popular fix for the Beastmaster Ranger. It was called Beastmaster Accounting. So anyway, this is a sort of a snapshot at what the thinking was before the revised Ranger Unearthed Arcana came out. I really appreciate the design of the revised Ranger. I think I like it a lot better than a lot of stuff in this consensus Ranger. But this is a really interesting project because, like I said, it's a collection of the most common fixes at the time. This is what people were thinking should go into make the Player's Handbook Ranger better. So let's fast forward all the way to now. For the Galder's Gazetteer, for those of you who are not in on the premise, the idea was people, when they backed the Kickstarter, one of the pledge levels was you could submit content into the book, right? So for $30, you could submit a spell. Spells are small. For $50, you could submit an archetype, because archetypes are really big. For $100 or whatever, you could submit an entire rules module. Sometimes it's going to take, a page or two to explain. And then for $500, you could remake the Ranger class. So when we got that was the top tier Kickstarter, the person got to remake the Ranger. They sent me not a complete class, but just like a list of a few design ideas, right? These are the things that they kind of wanted to incorporate, and it wasn't all the way there. So I had some restrictions, right? Like I had to incorporate their ideas as best I could, even though they give me a fully fleshed out class. And since the time, there's been a lot of development in the Ranger. We have seen, like I said, the Ranger Revised, which was AL legal. It had a lesser favorite enemy, a greater favorite enemy. You could have advantage anytime you're in your favorite terrain on initiative. Let's see now. The pet was totally different. So that was that. We also saw, for a little while, the Happy Fun Hour Proto Ranger. There was like a Ranger that was half designed on stream and has all sorts of cool features and ideas that you could trade your spell casting to get all sorts of other cool perks. All right. And then there's also the variant class features that got released for the Unearthed Arcana, and then finally published in Tasha's. So there is a lot more technology, I think you can think of it, on how to do the Ranger. And there's also been 5 years of people homebrewing Rangers, people coming out with Ranger fixes of their own, and I read most of them. And so something I'm actually pretty critical on is, because people have so many different ideas of what the Ranger should be, these reworks of the Ranger class tend to get very bloated. They're just loaded with features because they want to cover every possible base to make every possible person happy. And so when we went in to do this Ranger for Galders, those are the two constraints that I had. I had to sort of follow this person's ideas, and they weren't like all the way fleshed out, but they still had like a rough outline. And I didn't want to become overly bloated, right? I didn't want to have all these features that made the class like super heavy and complex. I wanted it to be kind of light. I wanted to be able to just really easily jump in and see what was going on there. And I also wanted to do something kind of de novo, right? The other Ranger back in 2016 was a consensus Ranger, right? It had a collection of features that you saw in lots of other places. And this one, for the most part, I thought well, let's try to go the opposite direction. Let's try to give a lot of new features, things that aren't seen in common reworks, and see how that goes. All right, and then this is my favorite bit right here. Like, it's sort of my tongue-in-cheek designer note about the Rangers. I've seen countless rugged heroes ranging the frontiers and wandering the wilderness. They all have different sets of skills and talents. Many think they're the best type of ranger, and the others are lacking some essential quality. No wonder they often end up as loners. Okay. So when you choose this ranger, everything gets ripped out, except for extra attack, spell casting, and land stride. Land stride is the 8th level ability to let you walk over difficult terrain. You instead gain the following features indicated in the variant ranger table. And so here are the stuff that you get back. So then these are not 1-for-1 swaps, right? Like you get a 9th level feature. You get a couple things at 1st level. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this is. Notice there is no natural explorer and there is no favorite enemy, and there's nothing that replaces them. I've come to think that natural explorer is a bad feature. People always complain about how overland travel isn't fun, and that the ranger, sort of takes away all the challenge from overland travel. So, and then when people always remake the ranger, they always add natural explorer back in. If you're going to remake the class, why not take away the problematic feature? So, no natural explorer. So we have to do something else to make the ranger feel like they're able to last in the wilderness without giving them all these I win buttons. And it also removes the problem that the ranger is going to be good one area and not good another. So, boundless. You have a climbing speed and walking speed. Climbing speed and swimming speed equal to your walking speed. Boom. That's what you do. You are actually good at exploring. In my experience, or at least how I run the game, and I imagine other DMs that I've played in, how they run their games, when you're doing overland travel encounters, when you're doing wilderness travel encounters, a lot of the time it's based on the terrain. It's not based on your county. It's not based on how many rations you can find. It's some sort of terrain-based challenge. And so having something that helps you navigate the terrain would be really useful. And again, it helps you feel like a skirmisher. So again, no natural explorer, but you can actually move around and navigate the wilderness. Additionally, you have dedicated yourself to patrolling a particular type of environment. So you get to choose a favorite terrain, but it doesn't do anything for you other than give you a minor perk, right? If you Arctic, you're resistant to cold damage and can tolerate cold temperatures. So this is actually a little cool bit of design. I talked a bit about this on the Galder's stream. But we had to sort of balance these damage types against each other, right? Like fire damage is the most common, so you do not get a ribbon attached with it. As opposed to acid, which are the least common damage, or lesser type of damage, less common types of damage. And so you get a little rider, a little ribbon about advantage on saving throws to resist disease. They make you feel good if you're in your terrain, kind of, but it's useful throughout the entire game. All right, and each time you gain a level, you can replace your chosen environment with another from the same list. So you are never stuck with a bad choice. All right, and then Expert Tracker. Beginning at 1st level, you add double your proficiency bonus to intelligence and wisdom checks made to track creatures or know signs of their passage. There you have it, the Ranger tracks. That's exactly what they do there in Expert Tracker. This is Wisdom Survival, Wisdom Nature, or Intelligence Nature, Intelligence Investigation, all sorts of things. And we have to give you double your proficiency bonus instead of advantage because we want to stack with Hunter's Mark. So there you go. You can actually track. And I think this is actually the best way to do the exploration pillar. Like, this is actually going to help the ranger feel fulfilled. They're going to use this ability a lot because it's right there in front of them. And this actually, I think this is actually going to reveal a lot of information to the team. The rangers are going to know what kind of monsters ahead. They're going to get some information on it. They can then ask the bard, they can ask the wizard, do you know anything about this? Lots of stuff. Vigilance. Starting at 3rd level, you have advantage on initiative rolls. And then, so here's a little interesting bit right here. It's near impossible to catch you off your guard. That's not standard English, and the reason it's phrased that way is because it mirrors the language used in the Lord of the Rings movie, right? What's this? A ranger cut off his guard? Right? Anyway. So I think I talked about how I didn't want this class to become cluttered with you get all these different abilities, and yet there's lots of different things that people want out of the Ranger. And so at 6th level, this is sort of my compromise here. You can choose one of 3 Wondrous Boons. You either get Animal Empathy, classic 3rd edition, 2nd edition Ranger ability, and it appeared briefly in the Chris Perkins Ranger, I think. Yes. Where you can like just charm a beast that you see out there, and it acts as your friend. And you can sort of communicate with it. Or you can cast a Hunter's Mark without spending a spell slot. That's what everyone wants, right? Everyone talks about how Hunter's Mark could be a class feature, and boom, there it is. And then here you get the Protector's Awareness. This is one that is sort of similar to, it's the Primeval Awareness feature, but it's a bit more useful, right? You choose the type of thing and you see if it's there. And then you know its number, fewer scores, and their general direction, such as 2 miles northeast and underground. So it helps you actually track it down, right? Not only does it tell you that it's there, it tells you how many and where it is. This is a pretty useful feature. So you can choose one of those 3. At 9th level, you get Legendary Endurance. So 9th level in the Player's Handbook Ranger, you don't get anything, but this is sort of thrown back in there. This first saving throw, if you fail a saving throw, resist being exhausted or adversely affected by extreme weather, you can choose to succeed instead. Like, what else is a Ranger but the ultimate survivor? And we just gave it to you at 9th level. So Stalker. The rework, I think it had the 10th level Hide in Plain Sight feature. But Hide in Plain Sight is kind of a dumb ability that no one really likes, right? Or the way that it's intended is you sort of like patch yourself up with mud, you stay in one place and no one can see you, right? But then that's super, super situational. If you actually read the text closely, if you spend 10 minutes and camouflage yourself, then you can get up and move, and then you can stay put, right? So you build like this invisible little duck blind, and that goes around with you, which is not what they intended. At Tasha's, you can just become invisible. And so here we do something a little bit less magical, right? Stalker. I was thinking of the Marine Corps Scout Stalkers, right? That they could put on their ghillie suit, and then you can walk across this field and you can't see them, right? Completely invisible. So you hide as a bonus action, and then once you're hidden, you expertly camouflage yourself and become invisible. So you're invisible, but it's a non-magical invisibility. And then you remain invisible as long as you move more than 5 feet on your turn. You are a sniper, right? You can move, you belly crawl across there and no one can see you. Until you are ready to hit an attack, cast a harmful spell, yada, 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 yada. This 14th level feature was one that they sort of suggested, right? That they wanted the Foe Slayer moved down to a lower level. And then there we go. And so this sort of mirrors the favorite enemy just a little bit, right? If you spend 1 minute observing a creature, once each turn you can add a bonus to your wisdom modifier to the damage rolls. So small perk the damage against any creature of the same type, or subtypes of goblinoids or humanoids, right? Spend lasts for 1 hour until you focus your study on another type of foe. And you can switch it around, so you're never really out of it, right? If this is good for an adventure, this is good for a dungeon, you're going to use it a lot. So Master Guide. Initially, the submitter wanted this at 6th level. What Master Guide does is you spend an hour and you can instruct 8 creatures how to employ the same survival techniques you've mastered. So they gain the benefit of your Boundless feature. So remember your chosen terrain up here? So you talk to your party and they all learn how to get resistance to fire damage. They all get resistance to poison damage. So the problem was you couldn't get that at 6th level because granting resistance to damage is a feature of Wish. That's a 9th level spell that does the same thing. So we had to move this all the way up to 18th level. Right? They gain the benefits of Boundless until they finish their next long rest. But then you can wake up again as part of your next long rest and instruct them. So as long as they're with you, they're going to be okay. Which I think is exactly what we want. And then at 20th level, what should be a capstone for our ranger? They know the location of invisible creatures and any creature they're attempting to hide, right? They have this primal sense, super connected, things can't hide from them, right? Rangers traditionally been able to fight without seeing, and now they just know where the invisible things are, and they cannot be surprised, right? You're always aware. I think this is much more of a 20th level feature than just gain a minor boost in damage. I think this is nice. This is kind of a supernatural. I think it really, I don't know. I think it's a good 20th level feature.
Alright, that took a long time, but I hope you enjoyed the analysis. The Ranger is one of my favorite classes, and it really makes me sad to see how much hate is getting out there. But I really feel there are tons of great options, and I just wish folks would explore more. Yeah, that is the video, folks. Everyone, please buy the book, Galder's Gazetteer. It's the #1 seller on DriveThruRPG right now, and all the money is going to the Cancer Research Institute. I also have a $1 Patreon where I keep all of my streams, my home games, VODs, and soon we're also going to be starting a live play campaign on the channel. It's organized on the Discord, and the idea is that we're going to have a cast of set characters, but different players rotating through to play them in a series of linked one-shots. If you're interested in this at all, make sure to follow the channel, ring the bell, and as always, let me know your thoughts on the Ranger in the comments below.